Hi, I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. New set, all back. Sorry about the longer than planned hiatus. Moving in was a longer process than we thought, but new set is up and running. Still kind of under construction, but hopefully over the next couple months you'll see new things added to it, and we can really flesh it out back there because it's a little empty right now. On a similar vein, while things are still getting set up, I'll probably only be doing about one video a week. So expect the Friday releases to continue and maybe the midweek releases to pick back up in a couple weeks. So onto the topic for today. During the Clone Wars, the Jedi Temple served as a beacon of the light side in the galaxy. Famous as the headquarters for not just the Jedi, but really a central piece of the Republic war effort against the Separatists during the Clone Wars. To be clear, I'm referring to the temple on Coruscant. I know there are several others across the galaxy. I'm referring to the main one on Coruscant that plays a very prominent role in the prequel trilogy and is seen very heavily in the Clone Wars series. So, with its significance during the Clone Wars and the earlier eras of the Republic's prominence in the galaxy, what happened to it after Order 66? Now, anyone who's seen Revenge of the Sith knows that it was sacked by clone troopers following orders from the Emperor. This operation, called Operation Nightfall, was led by Darth Vader and saw most of the Jedi in the temple wiped out. As depicted in Legends and Canon, Yoda and Obi-Wan carried out a strike against the temple immediately following Order 66 with the intention of disabling the beacon that's calling Jedi back to the temple, which was a trap. But after that raid, what happened next? What happened to the temple after the dust settled from the Clone Wars and from the fall of the Jedi? Well, Legends and Canon tell two very different stories. I'm going to start with Legends because it's a little simpler. So in Legends, immediately following the end of the Clone Wars, the temple became a trap. And even after Yoda and Obi-Wan had disabled the beacon, it was still being used by the Emperor for pretty much the duration of the reign of the Empire to lure Jedi back in. During most of this time, it sat in a relative state of abandonment and disarray. Many of its ornate statues and columns crumbling in disrepair. The temple loomed empty and dark over the capital district of Coruscant for the entire duration of the reign of the Empire in Legends. Once again, only really being occupied by a few Imperial patrols and the occasional wayward Jedi falling into the trap. It wouldn't be until after the destruction of the Second Death Star and the New Republic's liberation of Coruscant that the Jedi Temple would really be reinstated into a functional building to be used by the Jedi Order. Canon tells a very different story. In Legends, the Jedi Temple is actually built on top of a much older Sith temple, which was originally constructed on top of a mountain when there was more natural areas on Coruscant. Seeing the power and significance of this site to the Sith, the Jedi figured building a temple over it would help contain the dark side of the Force that emanated from that site. So after the fall of the Jedi Order in canon, the Empire continued to use it as a trap for a very brief period of time. The first few months of the Empire's existence, generally. But after that, the temple began to take on a very different and unusual role. Following the collapse of the Jedi Order and the rise of the Galactic Empire, during most of the duration of the existence of the Galactic Empire, the Jedi Temple served as the residence of Emperor Palpatine. Adopting the new name, the Imperial Palace, as mentioned in many new books, Tarkin is the first that comes to mind off the top of my head, the Emperor would regularly head down to the remnants of the old Sith Temple to meditate and reflect on the meaning of the site to the Sith. As described in many books, it supposedly was almost completely covered by new Imperial architecture that made it very hard to tell that it was even the same building. This does contradict what we see at the end of the remastered Return of the Jedi, where you see the Jedi Temple kind of in the background. So the assumption then could be made that it was more coloring changes and maybe some stuff lower to the ground, where the three spires remained prominently above the sort of pyramid of the lower segment of the temple. So, in canon, following the fall of the Empire, it's implied that the Jedi Temple goes back to serving as a Jedi Temple very briefly. We do see in the sequel trilogy, it looks like some of Luke's new Jedi Order is not based on Coruscant and is based somewhere else. So, the fate of the temple after the fall of the Empire is not very well known in canon. It's just kind of interesting to see the contrast between Legends and canon in this, too. I know I've done a lot of videos that compare and contrast them. This is another kind of point where they're different in a very interesting way. So if you enjoyed what you saw here today or just want more sci-fi discussions, head down below, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. And don't forget to leave a like and a comment. Tell me which one you prefer. Do you like the canon story of what happened to the temple or the Legends story? I personally kind of like the Legends story. The idea of it being left kind of empty and abandoned, a relic of the old Republic, seems kind of fitting. But I can kind of get the new story too, and there's pros to that one as well. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.